your remarks to 5 minutes. Anyone like to speak? Go ahead.
Doug Champlin, 225 Bowen Street, Jamestown, New York. Recently, we've had a lot of, I think, public exposure to what the Jamestown Local Development Corporation is all about. And I don't think publicly this has been read, and I don't even know if it's ever been read at the Jamestown Local Development Corporation meetings, because I find no historical record that it has. The bylaws. Why is it important that bylaws are followed? Because we operate in a country that needs a certain amount of consistency and not a total biases on politics. Associated with decision making are people that are put in office. Okay, Section 5 of Article 7, loan grants to directors and officers. The corporation, either directly or indirectly, including through any subsidiary, is prohibited from extending and maintaining credit, arranging for the extension of credit, or renewing any extension of credit in the form of a personal loan or grant to or for any director or officer, to any immediate relative of any director or officer, to any company, corporation, firm, association, or other entities which one or more of the directors or officers of the corporation own a material interest. I don't care how you spin this. I don't care what the justification is for somebody getting something. I know of no historical record where something like this has ever really happened before. The legal interpretation should have been handled before these types of loans or grants were administered. You have legal people here. The mayor is a lawyer. I mean, we have a lot of experience in the JLDC. I mean, I'm looking at one there that's been around for 20-some years. And Ms. Eklund as well. So where is the problem here? Is it something you just assume was okay, that something can be done like this? Passing through government money that is not your own has certain conditionals necessary for it to happen. There's no pass-through to allow this to happen. Now, I have to cite, I like to read it. Done. We could kill this thing tonight. Done. Over. I believe seriously, Jeff Russell is a good, honest, working city councilman. And I believe if he was told to begin with that this probably could not happen, he would not be involved in this at all. I don't know what he was told. I can't find no record that anybody told him anything. So is this a failure on the part of the people on the Jamestown Local Development Corporation? Or this is a failure on the part of interpretation? Or this a failure on the part of really understanding what the values of government are for? Patronage doesn't come into play here. The opportunity to award loans and grants to members of city council or appointed directors. And what's more important than the Jamestown Local Development Corporation, because it had an evolution in 1981, and I was working with the Jamestown Urban Renewal Agency, which was the, I guess you would say, the mother of the JDLC. There was nothing like this was ever a problem, because everybody knew going into it, you couldn't do it. So I asked the mayor, why did this happen? Does he have a reason for getting this far along in this question of tell us what to do? Or are we just going to wait and this out and we all know what's coming, as if it's not going to be done? I don't see any fault with Jeff Russell. I like the guy. And I don't think he did anything wrong if he was told not to do it. I don't think he would have done it. So why you told him it was okay, and we're not talking about recluse in the form of a recluse spider that goes down later and eats his prey. When you recluse yourself from something, you have to recluse yourself from everything, not because you don't vote. So my point is quite direct. We have bylaws, we have a city charter. I don't know how many city council people have read the charter all the way through, where they consider it's a responsibility. There are ethic requirements that actually dovetail right into what the Jamestown Local Development Corporation is about. So now we're going to wait. Now we're going to have the state, but the state doesn't really control American Rescue Plan money. Department of Treasury does. And by the way, that process has already been started. That's enough said on this one. I got more to talk about, but it seems like these things happen, but there's no explanation why they succinctly happen. One final point. The mayor is 3 years and 2 months plus a few days into his cycle. He's relatively a young mayor. Our city council people have been around here for a long time. Your corporation council, same amount of time. Takes years to weed through ups and downs. So maybe we didn't have enough experience. Maybe we didn't understand what needed to be done. But now is the time to change.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else like to speak?
Hi, my name is Tom Nelson. I'm the new legislative District 13 representative. Many of you know I'm filling the rest of the term of Paul Whitford. And I see my position in the county government as kind of a liaison to Mayville. And whenever I can do anything to help out, please let me know. I'm looking forward to working with the mayor as I get more and more experience into this job. I'm really here tonight to watch the presentation on splash pads. As someone who coached a lot of sports and would encourage kids to get outside and exercise, I think it could be a perfect way to create a safe place for kids. But I'm interested and have some concerns. I think there's some things we need to look at, like water hygiene. Is it a safe surface? Is it durable but safe? Will there be regular maintenance, and what could that cost? And safety from heat too. While they're out there, that's an issue in some of these places too. So I'm just hoping to sit down and learn a few things, but just thank you for your time, and that's it. Thanks.
Thanks.
Congratulations.
Anyone else?
My name is Bill Galati, live at 17 Blanchard in Jamestown, and thanks for this opportunity. But I need to comment on, and to add to this morning's Post-Journal article, where the Housing Committee Chairwoman, Councilman Carubba, and the Director of Development, Crystal Surdick, commented extensively regarding the city's housing issues, specifically those regarding the city's ongoing crisis with blighted properties. I concur with Chairman Carubba's statements regarding how a single eyesore will have a disproportionate effect on the property value and character of a neighborhood. I've been dealing with the fallout of such a property, one that has stood vacant since September 2020. And the perspective I've gained through this ongoing aggravating ordeal may be of use to this council when reviewing and updating Jamestown's nuisance property laws and how the city deals with code violations. Firstly, the city needs to add actual teeth to the nuisance property laws, specifically targeting chronic code violators. I've had multiple conversations with the people at the Department of Development over the past couple of years, and the most common response that came with these discussions regarded how little the city can do in regards to an absentee owner. Those sentiments were echoed in the Post-Journal article, but they also parallel the stalling tactics used by Allen Street Development LLC from a city update dated February 2nd, 2022, before the disaster at the former Crawford Furniture on Allen Street. The actual teeth I'm speaking of will in no way negatively impact the multitude of good landlords in this community. It goes farther than what Ms. Carubba was quoted saying in today's paper about making it mandatory for local property management, proof of insurance, and the like. To be brutally honest, these slumlords will not be moved by these reasonable measures except to pass on those additional costs to their victim tenants. My suggestion for teeth regards the designation as a nuisance property itself, which would assess escalating penalties for ignored violations and could also be extended to rental units known for repeated and long-standing drug activity. Instead of attempting to cajole or cite one of these absentees, especially when they're from outside the area and or hiding behind a bad faith LLC, the city can up the tax rate on that property by a minimum of 30% as a penalty that does not lift until such a time that the property is sold and the violations have been remedied. If the situation persists, I'm sure that the verbiage used for seizing a property for unpaid taxes can be repurposed accordingly. in the case of Bad Faith LLC sending unqualified and or unauthorized representatives to address a summons, akin to the way the Raciniacs were able to delay court-ordered corrective action, codify a penalty for the tacit contempt of court instead of permitting the indefinite stalling game. The city of Jamestown cannot continue to step softly around the issue while our neighborhoods decay. So making the city unattractive to this sort of investor, landlord, is the only logical next step. This brings me to my second suggestion, and it specifically regards how the Chautauqua County Land Bank acquires property within the city of Jamestown. I had the vacant eyesore next to my property boarded up last summer, and I was looking forward to the opportunity to bid on it in a tax auction. I was denied that opportunity, and in my first discussion with the land bank, discovered that the other neighbor opposite this neighborhood crime magnet was actively inquiring about the property when it was still up for auction. So in spite of local neighborhood interest, flying in the face of what everyone seems to seek, having a private homeowner invest in their own neighborhood, they still appropriated property for $1. They are unwilling to so much as give me an asking price, and my attempts to contact director, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Gina Paratis, have gone unanswered. I've spoken to 2 board members and been in contact with the mayor's office regarding the questionable way this property was appropriated, and I have been dismissed because they are going with their original plan. I spoke with the property manager after having to involve Jamestown Police Department because of yet another break-in on this most recent Saturday. And he said they don't want to appear to play favorites. They are. They're playing their favorites. The land bank took that property off auction in spite of knowing that there was interest from at least one of the neighbors. And again, I am told that the direction of my neighborhood is in the hands of a third party who does not live there, has no actual interest in the neighborhood or in the Jamestown community, in favor of a pool of investor landlords. In the meantime, the responsibility of keeping an eye on their prize is forced on me as if I volunteered. The only thing I volunteered to do is privately purchase the property, as intended last year, and improve my neighborhood with private funds, as Ms. Carrabba indicated was the city's ultimate goal. Absent the teeth I mentioned earlier and continued trust and cooperation with the land bank, a government-adjacent entity run by individuals with no actual accountability to the communities that they are supposed to benefit, it's not helping the city address affordable or safe housing. It's not even fighting blight, rather recycling that blight for city residents to deal with in a few years' time. If this city is to turn around from its ongoing trends towards decline, difficult decisions need to be made. I hope this council is willing to accept that some investor dollars actively harm this city and community, and actions must be taken to discourage them. Otherwise, our community can continue to reap the decline of our neighborhoods amid escalating rents. Thank you.
Anyone else would like to address the council? Seeing none, we'll move on to our committee reports. Finance, Ken?
Sure.
Oh, I'm sorry. We
You
got
wanna do the,
presentation, yeah.
you wanna do the
Let's skip
presentation
those
first?
first. Let's do the Bird Bike Share regarding the proposed electric bike and scooter pilot program. We have a presentation here.
Yes, can I add some context before we get
Sure.
Jeremy up?
Jeremy, we're just about to get started.
So, just to talk briefly about the Bird Bike Share Program, Bike and Scooter Share Program. Many of you may remember that the city was at one point looking into a program separate that would be a city-run program for electric bike share. In that time since, we've been having some conversations with Jeremy Lynch, who's from Bird Scooters, about the city, as well as about a potential partnership in it. So Bird is a bit unique as a company that focuses on micro-mobility, both e-bikes and e-scooters. You may remember they do have those scooters already in Dunkirk and some other locations. I think Fredonia has them as well. In our discussions with Jeremy, we weren't sold on scooters. We had a lot of heated discussions internally, about scooters and the various issues, but we were very keen on e-bikes and the ways that we could potentially utilize e-bike programs. Bird is a little unique where they actually provide all of the capital costs and they manage the program. And in return, the city receives a portion of, a financial portion of each ride. They also hire, as Jeremy will probably talk about, they hire a local operator to manage all of the bikes and scooters to make sure that they are running, that they're serviced, that they're in the proper locations. And in our discussions, we've talked a lot about where those bikes and scooters should be placed. So we were very pleased to know that Bird has been utilizing technology to kind of force a bike rider or a scooter rider into various designated areas at the areas designated by the city, where we would then have those at. Bikes and scooters that don't arrive in those designated areas, the person actually gets charged for the cost of those bikes and scooters, and they are also picked up by that local operator within a short time frame. So what we wanted to do is have Jeremy talk to you a little bit about the program and answer additional questions. And this goes in line with our kind of much larger plan of complete streets, Vision Zero, and really more micro mobility. As you all know, not everyone in the city can afford a car, right? But there is a unique opportunity to provide some of this additional mobility options in the non-winter times. I want to be very clear about that too. So I don't think anyone's planning on riding a bike in the winter, but maybe they will if the weather's been like this. So, well, maybe not tonight. Take that back. Jeremy, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, hi Jeremy. This is Mayor Sundquist. We're just trying to give an update to our city council and would love for you to introduce yourself on behalf of Bird.
Sure. My name is Jeremy Lynch. I live in Massachusetts. I've been with Bird for about 4+ years. And I have been basically in the Northeast and the Midwest. Basically, I've sold in all the cities that we have in New York currently, which would be Oswego, as Mayor mentioned, Dunkirk and Fredonia. We started a program in North Tonawanda earlier this fall. We have a program in Yonkers, the East Bronx, and we're going to roll out a few more this spring. So, very familiar. New York passed a law for e-scooters and e-bikes back in 2020, which sets the parameters of how a program can operate. And so there are the rules and regs as far as operations in the state, which is good. And I've been in the mobility business for a long time. I sold Zipcar. I was with Zipcar for about 7 years and sold in all the university programs and a lot of the city programs before I moved over to Bird. So pretty familiar with the scooter industry from the very beginning. When we started this industry back in 2018, and it's changed quite a lot. Since then, it's become the vehicle itself is what you see privately owned, like maybe on an Amazon website. Those are the scooters we had in 2018. The scooters we have today are worlds light years apart from what they were before. In fact, the newer scooters have 200 sensors on them, so it knows when the scooter falls over. It knows everything that's going on inside the scooter, which is a far greater feat than when we started initially back in 18. So the bikes are something we introduced last year. They've become super popular. We ran out of them last year because so many cities wanted them, and it was one of the offerings that we thought would be beneficial to a lot of markets. And it's done very well for us. So the bikes are something new to us, and we're very proud of how well they've done it and the cities they've been in this past year. So that's me.
We appreciate it. Jeremy, thank you so much. Just for kind of city council's understanding, these wouldn't operate on a 24/7 basis. So in most cities, they end early morning. They have an operator that comes, a local operator that comes and collects them. Bird manages all of those costs, so there is no additional cost for us as a city. We've already had some preliminary conversations of spaces which would be primarily marked, and then we work with Bird to ensure the technology moves those individuals to those spaces in order to put up their bike or their scooter. Because similar to probably you all, we want to make sure that there isn't clutter and that those bikes and those scooters aren't appearing in rights of ways that they shouldn't. So we've had a lot of discussions with Jeremy. He's probably tired of hearing us about this. The number of times we've talked to him about it. But certainly there is a no cost to the city, a per ride revenue share of 20 cents per ride as well. And Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong. If we're able to come to an agreement, we would be looking at a pilot program starting this summer.
As soon as the all the paperwork gets done, we hope to launch in the spring. But yeah, and it basically, as you mentioned there, it's seasonal. So the scooters are off the ground in all the locations I mentioned previously, New York, pretty much everywhere in the Northeast. They'll come back out probably. Our guy in Oswego really likes to launch the end of March or April, but it's weather dependent clearly. So it runs for about 8 months. 7 or 8 months of the year. And like the mayor had said, it is, there are hours of operations. So generally the hours of operations are 5 a.m. to midnight. And any time between those hours, the scooters and or the bikes are non-operational. So they can't be run. They disappear from the app. So even if you have the app open and you're standing beside the scooter and it's 12:05, you wouldn't be able to see it. And you wouldn't be able to scan into it. It's basically a 55-pound paperweight, bike's about 75 pounds, so they can't be moved or operated after midnight. So that's one of the good things of the program. And then at 5 a.m. they would become live again and be able to be used.
Great. So questions?
Jeremy, I have one on pricing. Your example in the brochure says averaging $6 a ride. How long did $6 last you with the $1 plus the per minute?
Yeah, that's about a 10-minute ride. So it's $1 to get on and 49 cents a minute thereafter.
49.
And that price, so when the mayor mentioned about, I don't know if he mentioned it, but we do have community pricing. So it basically goes for not only just those that are on state assistance or federal assistance. There's a means by which they would apply and let us know that if it's an EBT card. I'm not sure what it is in New York, but here in Mass it is. You just take a picture of it, you send it in to us, you answer some questions, and then you would get half off that ride. So instead of being 49 cents, it would be 24.5 cents or whatever the number would be for those folks. And that also goes for senior citizens, veterans, hospital or healthcare workers, things like that. So we extend that pricing out to a lot of folks in different communities. And it's one of those things, again, for those folks that don't have cars, that do happen to be on assistance, it gives them, they don't get priced out. And so we also have stuff for people that are unbanked as well, so that they can use prepaid cards as well, because you need a debit or a credit card. You can use one of those cards too if you don't have, if you are unbanked.
So in essence, a lot of people aren't using these bikes or scooters for joyride, to take it for an hour and run around town.
No, so yeah, it's funny you said it, because at the beginning of the program, what happens is you'll see a lot of people do go off for like 15, 20-minute rides, because it's fun. I mean, I'm 56 and I still love to ride. So, but once you kind of get past that honeymoon stage, as it were, what happens is that those ride times actually come down. So where you'll see rides basically between 4 and 8 minutes generally is the time. And what that means is that people are actually using it to go for a specific location,
Right.
like they're going to work, or going back home, or going to lunch. And so you'll see weekend times go up when it's a nice day and people can ride along the water and things like that. They will, especially bikes. Bikes generally list a longer ride. And so you'll see longer rides on the bikes than you will on the scooters. But yeah, at the beginning, it'll be a little longer, and then that time will just come down and people get used to it and fit it into their daily transit. However they get around, they'll start to use them basically, and they're more purpose-driven.
Very nice.
Is there a limited radius where they'll be operational so that if somebody gets outside the area, it deactivates?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we would set part of the launch process is we'd set up an operating area around the town, however, you know, the town would like to have it configured. And once it leaves that area, it comes to a stop, and you can't operate it anymore.
And how many places have you been to Jamestown and you know the geography of, or the terrain, hills and all of that?
Yeah,
And brick
I have not
streets?
been,
Okay.
but I've been in touch with the folks even through last year. So I'm very familiar with the terrain, and
Okay.
the bikes and the scooters do have enough pull to definitely go up the hills.
Okay. Well, the one thing I'm concerned about in terms of, people riding down the sidewalk, how fast will they go, or can they pick up speed on a hill going down where they can't stop? Because we have frequent riders who ride on the sidewalk and out in the streets, and don't stop at the sidewalk intersections. How easily do these things stop when they pick up momentum?
They stop very well. So there's two sets of brakes. There's a front brake and a back brake on both vehicles, and then the top speed they can go is 15 miles an hour, and that's state law. Actually, e-bikes can the state law I think is
29.
going over 20, I think, before you have to wear a helmet. So our e-bikes are set at 15, so you can't go faster than 15. So they do come to a stop very well.
And they are supposed to be operated in the street, not on the sidewalks, correct?
Correct.
And they will be told that when they pick them up, that they're not to be operated on the sidewalks?
It's part of the tutorial they have to take. So when you join, you have to go through a flip screen tutorial where it explains what the rules of the road are. And it also says it in big bold letters on the scooters themselves, do not operate on sidewalks. So, and it's part of the messaging at the beginning of the program. We always do through, push notifications either on their phone or in the app about not riding on sidewalks. And it's one of those things we can constantly harp on at the beginning of a program. So that and parking, so that people used to, the rules of the road and where they're supposed to be riding. Because the scooters are big enough that it's not like the, children's scooter. It is it weighs 55 pounds, it's heavy, it's tall, it has a good sized kickboard, so it is not something that's very easy to drive. It's very roadworthy, and it should be ridden on the road.
Some cities have actually worked with companies like Bird, and they can do alerts when someone's on the sidewalk versus the road. So there's some potential for that as well.
Well, I mean, I just had a number of near misses with people flying down in front of my office on Main Street, and people don't stop, and we've had people get hit just on a regular bicycle. I worry about downtown, if people are using them, and I've seen people riding bikes downtown, and they don't look and they don't watch for cars or pedestrians. They're just a concern.
Yep, absolutely. And one of the things that we help address that is in the app itself, and if anyone's downloaded the app, there's a little triangle on the bottom left-hand corner. It's called community mode. And what that allows any citizen, member, anybody, if someone working for the city, what that allows you to do is report in either a damaged scooter or bike or someone who's riding irresponsibly. You can report that person. You don't have to, actually, we don't want you to go confront that person, but what you can do is, there's a QR code on top of each bike and scooter. You just scan the QR code and tell us that the last person who was riding this was riding recklessly. I'd like to report them. And what we can do is, because we track every ride, we can go back and if you even put in a time of day, we'll know exactly who the member is. We can tell. And so we'll go back, and then that's part of that process. We warn that member, you were caught speeding today, or you were caught recklessly riding, something like that. And, generally what we do is after a couple of strikes, we remove those people from the program because, you can't have a bad apple spoiled with a bunch. So it's one of the ways in which the community can help itself and other members can, report in either bad parking, or reckless riding, things like that, so it helps police the program.
Operators don't need licenses or liability insurance or anything?
They do have to, there's a driver's license, they have to identify themselves, so they have to have something to identify who they are. And generally, it's a driver's license, state-issued ID, something like that, so they can identify who they are, and they do have to be 18.
18's the minimum age?
Correct.
What
And no,
stops?
they don't have to have that insurance. That's what we have insurance for them. That's part of the member agreement they sign. They do get insured.
What stops theft of these? What would stop someone from
if one is sitting there stationary from picking it up and quite frankly, launching it into the Chattacoin. Also, when you said if there's people that, and the Chattacoin is a nearby river here if you haven't been here. The other thing you mentioned is that, you know, people that might be riding on the sidewalks or anything, you can report them. When I hear you say that, I hear an increased possible workload for our local police department via complaints of people on sidewalks or not in the, you know, operating them correctly. Also, the other question I have, two-part question, maybe not for you. Well, I'll let you go ahead and answer as far as the theft.
I was gonna say, yeah,
Go
let
ahead.
me get to
Go
this
ahead.
couple. So first, as far as theft goes, the scooters and the bikes are all GPS coordinated, so it's down to about 2 feet. So I know where that scooter is at all times. You can put it in your basement, I'm gonna know where it is. You can't knock the brain off of it because it's internal. There are no external screws or wires or things like that you can get to it. So there's really no way to disable the GPS in either of the vehicles. As far as tossing it, yeah, I imagine, but you seem like a big guy. You could probably handle 55 pounds of an awkward, you know, scooter with a neck 3.5 to 4 feet tall and a plate that weighs, I mean, it's heavy. You know, flinging that anywhere. You basically have to be riverside in order to throw that in the river. But as soon as you would, one of the sensors goes off and we know it's in the water and the GPS will still be active and we can see it. And one of the best things about the battery is you pull that out of the water and you could operate that the next day because the battery compartment is so highly sealed that it wouldn't disturb the battery. So, theft has gone down tremendously on those. We just don't see them take it. And as far as workload goes, that's kind of one of the things that we work with the police department with is basically so your dispatcher has our name, our number, our 800, everything, all the information they would need. So if somebody calls in a complaint, they're immediately directed back to Berg. That's not something we want the police to have to worry about. The community mode, all those messages come to ourselves and the local fleet manager. So they immediately know when there's something wrong with the vehicle or, you know, when they're reported in, that goes to the fleet manager. So, you know, we want as little involvement as possible from local law enforcement, only because we don't want to tax you with anything else, and that's why if it's reported stolen, that's something that the fleet manager is responsible for. That's their responsibility to make sure if it is missing or it goes out of the operating area, they're the ones tracking it down. They're the ones doing, you know, all that kind of work. And it's one of the things that, you know, we rely upon them to do. We don't want law enforcement to be involved simply just, again, over the years of experience, we don't want to be nuisance.
The second part of the question I had was as far as liability to the city, and maybe this is more of a question for Corporation Counsel. If this is a program that we're sanctioning and one of your scooters is, or e-bikes is involved in an accident with a motor vehicle and they're found at fault, because we're sanctioning this program, are we potentially liable for some civil actions for someone that's engaged, you know, or that has an accident with one of your vehicles?
The easy answer is just to say no, but there is an insurance indemnification language that is in the operating agreement, which your council does have, and it does cover those kind of, you know, accidents that would happen or things like that that involve a scooter or a bike. But the city is protected, and we name Jamestown as additional insured on our COI as well.
Thank you.
Has Corporation Counsel actually reviewed this?
Yes.
Okay.
So there is an indemnification provision
I see that.
that would cover us. My main concern is the docklessness of the vehicles, which council is asking about now. Okay. Any further questions for Jeremy from our city council?
Very cool.
Thank you.
We appreciate it, Jeremy. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for the opportunity. If you have any more questions, you know, you can send them to Zach or anybody else, and I'll happy to answer them. Plus, obviously, if your council is redlining the agreement, you know, any of those sections, by all means, send it back, and we can work through those red lines as well.
Great. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Everybody take care.
Thanks.
Jeremy.
Okay, very good, thank you. We do have another presentation, the Parks program presentation. I know the mayor wanted to start that off, and then we turn it over to Dan and Matt from Parks, so go ahead.
Absolutely. We do have the presentation, so Robert, you probably have to move. I apologize. That's going to be in your face. It's not going to be good. While Zach is pulling up the presentation, at the last council meeting, you all had asked that Paula Pichon, our grant writer that we share with JCC, stop in, and she's actually behind me. So Paula, if you could wave and say hello. And I know Marie had to unfortunately step out, but as you know, we've had an incredible amount of success with the grants that Paula has written. Has created new partnerships with Jamestown Community College for us as well. So I just wanted to, well, you'd asked that she be here, so I don't know if there's anything you guys would like to.
I'll give her a hand.
So any questions for Paula? Paula, anything you want to say to the city council?
So I just really want to thank you for the opportunity to be here and the opportunity for this partnership with JCC. This is really a great time to have a grant writer. There's lots of resources out there, and it's really working out, as long as it's working out with you.
You've done an outstanding job, and commended for that.
Thank you.
We did receive a report of the number of grants that were outstanding and the amount of revenue that was returned, and it showed in a very positive light. How often does that come out, Paul? Is it a quarterly thing or a semi-annual or?
No, I did it for you guys for the annual,
Okay.
but I can run that report at any time.
We try to give it to you.
Quarterly?
We've tried to give it to you guys quarterly, yeah.
Okay. Very nice.
Is there any other questions for Paula? Anything specific or? Yeah, thank you. Okay. The weather's bad, you might want to know.
Be careful.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Paul.
Again, if anybody has any other specifics, they probably can get in touch with her and ask.
Regina, you want me to phone you?
Okay. So we'll move on to the Parks presentation.
What's calling? We blew up the system tonight.
Okay, so we'll get moving through some of the parks presentations. I just wanted to start. I just have a couple slides that I would like to talk about for you all, and then I'm going to turn it over to Dan and Matt to continue talking about some of the parks. As you all know, that we have some remaining rescue plan funds, and as part of our master plan, we discussed additional or potential park improvement projects. We've done a good amount so far. Thanks to the city council, but we wanted to propose a few more. We're doing this as a presentation, as an opportunity for there to be further discussion from city council. It doesn't need to be tonight. I'm just saying we're doing this earlier enough in advance that we can start to talk about these things. This presentation is meant just to be a jumping point for you all, so that if there are other ideas, other thoughts, things that you want to change in those programs, we can start that conversation, right? We know that this is getting towards the end of our rescue plan funds. We recognize that. Although this morning Dan volunteered to spend all of the funds if you all wish, but I politely declined him. So we want to just talk about a few projects that we've been working at and talking about as a city in some of our discussions on parks. We also have for you after we'll hand out to you, or you probably received over email, the rescue plan funds that are left over, the total amount, as well as other proposed thoughts for that funding. It's in a slide here too, so we'll show that to you as well. So don't worry about that. Are you able to move the slides? Yes. So I just want to briefly talk about two projects that have been a topic of discussion for some time in the city. And so those two are splash pads. I know for many of your committee meetings there's some additional questions. Dan and Matt are here to answer some of those as well, and we can do that. I just want to get through just briefly a couple slides, and then we can ask those questions on splash pads. In looking at some of the funding, we wanted to ensure that we had and are meeting the needs of some of our residents and for their kids. I think probably as you guys knock on doors, you've probably heard about splash pads, things for kids, all of those items. So this has been a discussion since 2019, the potential for splash pads within the city. When we were planning and thinking about this, we also wanted to think about where they would be placed across the city to ensure that our kids have equitable access to splash pads. So as part of that, we looked at two locations, Jackson Taylor Park and Allen Park. So the first one, Jackson Taylor Park. We're looking at a potential splash pad at Jackson Taylor Park, particularly, or in particular, we're looking at the location of where the skateboard park is right now. Not too far from the bathrooms and other amenities. There's parking. We did a brief visualization for you guys, as you can see here. A lot of these things, there are some ways that we can customize it, add in and address issues of shade, water, rates, things like that. We'll talk briefly about that as well. Next slide. Just the location, this is in that presentation that you have as well. It would be right where you see the skateboard park, not the new one, the old one. We picked that spot, we looked at a couple different spots. In fact, at Jackson Taylor Park, that one has probably the best, surface that we could apply it to. As you know, Jackson Taylor Park tends to sink when we install things. So we were really looking for surface quality and soil quality as part of it, as well as location to bathrooms and other required amenities, and obviously water lines, because you kind of need that for the splash pad. Right? This is the current site for those of you that would like to visually kind of think about it. Right now we have just the skateboard items that are still there. Next slide. We're looking at something called AquaSmart. Total cost of the Jackson Taylor with preparation around that site is about $250,000. That does include contingency. For the city council members, we actually put both of the proposals we've handed out the actual total amounts on those. Do we hand those out today?
We'll hand them out after this.
Okay,
Sorry.
excellent. So we do have the full amounts for you guys as well for city council members. And Zach will hand them out to all of you guys for both of these slides. So just so you're aware, the flow rate of these, many of the folks were concerned about how fast some of these flow out. Not that fast, about 45 gallons per minute. They come with different features, some shooting out of the ground, some shooting up from different various trees and structures and things like that. They're all based on a button system, is that correct, Tim?
Yes.
So you press the button and then it activates for a period of time and then turns off. For both of these splash pads that we're talking about, it is not a circulating water system. Okay, I know it's a big concern for a lot of folks. Circulating water system means we have a set amount of water that would be in there that would continue to circulate back and forth. We would then require New York State testing. We would have to have a bunch of additional staff in order to maintain it and manage it. In talking with the engineers for this, they actually recommended that we go with just I don't know what they call it, freshwater system.
Yeah.
So it would be water that you would see from your tap coming through whenever you press the button, and then would drain into our normal drainage system that we have. In addition, we would work with the BPU so that we don't get charged the double for the water. As some folks do, we use a double meter system for those. So I know that's been a concern that has been raised. Under New York State law, if we go with this system, we're not required and we don't need to do the rigorous testing involved with the circular system. And so it's a little bit different. We also would have our own park staff trained to manage that system. That's actually part of this cost, is how they would maintain and manage the system to be trained by the company that installs these locations. Next slide. Also wanted to show you the second location that we looked at a splash pad was Allen Park. Next slide, please. Brief kind of visual of it. You'll notice that both splash pads are also, in many cases, handicap accessible, right? So we want kids from all ages and with or without some type of disability to be able to enjoy these locations. Allen Park would have slightly different features than Jackson Taylor. We're just so that we have essentially the same thing, just different type of things that switch around or move around, things like that. Next slide. The site that we're looking at is actually the grassy corner area that we have currently that's near the bathrooms and by the basketball courts. That was a site selected because of the ground soil and the basketball location, as well as the water pipe that goes through there. Next slide. And here's the current site, so just again, for those that, I'm a very visual person at times, so I like to see where that could potentially go. It's a current site. This is another package, again, same, similar flow rate, similar size area, similar package of different things that are provided. Again, this is very same price with contingency. Both splash pads costing about $250,000 for it. And do we have one more after this one? And then the last item that we are looking at is to hold a community engagement meeting. So while we're discussing with you all, we also want to discuss with the community how this may look. So we would like to talk to residents in various areas, both for Jackson Taylor Park and for Allen Park. If all goes well and we're able to secure the funding and have a community meeting, our engineers have said that we can open by July 2023. So it would be for this summer. I think that's a little optimistic. They said the beginning of July, I said maybe towards the end of July. So we are working with them to figure out how much we could do in-house to potentially reduce some of this cost. The other thing to note is that we have been told that there is a potential $100,000 grant that we're waiting for allocation that could also reduce this cost for us. So that's the total cost between the two splash pads, and I'll open it up on splash pad questions, those that have.
So I know Marie has some questions, but unfortunately she had to leave for an emergency. But one question came out, a couple questions came out of finance.
Great.
You presented, obviously, sorry. You presented the cost to put in the splash pads,
Yep.
but what we're looking at is the maintenance cost and,
Yep.
and the amount of maintenance time required for the Parks Department and that kind of stuff. So, I know that those were a couple of the main concerns. I wasn't expecting her to leave, so I didn't write them all down, but let me see what my notes said. Vandalism was another concern. That was pretty much it, those four, maintenance time.
The one question
vandalism
that I
and
had
maintenance.
was, Dan, I know that to activate, you push a button, will there be a time frame where they would be turned off so that, you know, a kid at midnight, a bunch of teenagers are gonna go down and
Everything will run on a timer, from the startup to the shutdown of the whole operation, and even on the button itself. So whether we have some that maybe put out bigger water or faster flow on that one, you can restrict that to 15 seconds. Some of the longer running ones, maybe up to 90 seconds. So there's different programs we'd be able to incorporate into all of it.
But they will be shut down at certain times.
Yep, everything runs on a timer. Yeah, everything runs on a timer, and that'll be based off of, we haven't really gotten to big talks about that yet, depending on the season, obviously, but maybe also what's going on, you know, weekend, weekday activities in the park, those kind of things.
So this doesn't have to be staffed by city employees at all, correct?
No, in the parks, we're looking at having them in, we have full-time employees there in the summer while the parks are open anyways. Winterization is no different than what we do now with winterization in the parks. We go ahead and shut the water off, blow out all the lines, go from there and get it prepped and ready. And then they also have coverings that can go over top of it as well. So, maintenance, as you had mentioned, Kim, yeah, we don't have a maintenance budget for it. I don't think that stopped us on any project we've ever done since I've been in the parks. That just means I keep coming and asking you for more parks employees. It's concrete, is what it's gonna be. So it's a concrete pad. Other than maybe getting dinged up by something, really shouldn't be an issue. It's at least 4 inches thick, I think the specs are calling for. Vandalism, doesn't matter what we do, right? Doesn't matter where it's at. Stuff's gonna get vandalized. We've seen it on the camera as you walk in the door to City Hall. So I don't think that should be used as a deterrent in anything we do.
Do the fixtures come out in winter or not?
Yes, yep, yep, and we're looking at the possibility of maybe even being able to change some of those depending on how the setup goes. Splash pads, it's like everything else now. As soon as you buy that one and walk out the store, there's a new one there. So that's always keeping to be upgraded and everything as well.
Have you reached out to other municipalities to see the plus, minuses, any kind of issues? Like, I know there's one up in Dunkirk, right? I've had my daughter up there in the past, and she enjoyed it. Have you reached out to other?
We have spoke to Dunkirk, and it's been nothing but positive. You know, they would, if they could do it again, they might do 2 smaller ones than what they've got right now. Just driving around in the summer to different places that I go, and you see them out and about, they're always full, they're always packed. What's nice about the 2 sites we picked is we can have trees close to the area. With going with this system rather than recycling, we don't have to worry about so much leaf litter, grass, that kind of stuff. It's just going back into our storm sewer, not recycling through the system. So we will be able to have at least trees with a distance, provide some shade. Heat was mentioned. They're both plenty of places of shade in those 2 parks right now as well.
Is there fencing, Dave?
Existing right now at Jackson Taylor, there is. We ended up taking the skateboard equipment out of there over the last 2 weeks. It was getting to an unsafe condition. We were gonna have to either repair it all or just take it down. So we ended up taking it down, anticipating we were gonna do something different in that section of the park. We haven't talked completely about a fence around Allen yet, but that's something that could be looked at. We've talked to a couple different options.
Dan, on cold days, when in the summertime, when it's not conducive for the people to use the splash pad, the Parks Department employee just kills it.
Yeah, shut her down.
Yeah, rather than have them squirt it just for fun.
Yep. Okay. Yep. That's what's nice about it being concrete too. You know, in some of the playgrounds now, we've started using a rubberized material, which is great. I think it's the best stuff ever. If you hadn't had a chance to go to one of our playgrounds and walking on it, I guess it's like walking on the moon. You know, I've never walked on the moon, but it's a pretty bouncy feeling. With it being solid concrete like that, if it's not operational, there's no reason for anybody to be there.
Yeah.
You know, basketball courts are at both of those parks right now, and looking to do some improvements to those as well. So there's other things to do. I don't see that as an issue.
So I'll also just add, if folks have other questions, we are working to do some community engagement meetings because we want to talk a bit about those splash pads, whether we think that's a good spot for them, whether there is some design needs that the community would like in those areas. I do want to note that we have one scheduled for March 30th at 6 p.m. That's Allen Park Ice Rink, and another one at Jackson Taylor Park. The one on April 11th is also the same day that they're doing the HUD action plan meeting. So we combined it with that so that folks that are attending that day can also talk about some of the activities for HUD spending that we do as a city. So we didn't want to overburden the community with a bunch of meetings. Thanks to Crystal for pointing that out, that I was meeting the community to death. But we tried to combine a few of those so that we could get an even bigger response and learn how to best spend some of our other federal dollars as well.
Mayor, would you take a question from a citizen?
Sure, Doug.
Have you
Just for
studied
you.
the
You're the only one.
have you studied the epidemiology of using a splash pad regarding novovirus, regarding a variety of waterborne illnesses that are there, including the after use, such things as a mosquito application, and how is this going to be dealt and helped with? The CDC standards, the health department, they're discouraging this type of thing now. In fact, if we ever have another virus application, one of the first things will be shut down is the water plant.
So we have not, I would leave any of that professional opinion to an epidemiologist. You know, we could certainly ask the county, and unfortunately they've lost their epidemiologist, but we can certainly ask the county health department and try to get some further information. Okay, any further questions on the splash pad? Otherwise, I'm gonna let Dan and Matt take over and talk about a few additional parks.
Drains will be built right into the splash pads too, so there shouldn't be any pooling of water in the actual concrete surface itself. Everything should drain away, and then looking at building it, we'll probably be slanting everything to get that draining flow we need. First one I'd like to talk about is Roseland Park. I know there's some maps in there, but I brought a couple bigger ones to give you a better idea maybe of what we're looking at doing. Roseland Park Playground we built about 10 years ago with help with Kaboom and the Ralph Wilson Foundation. It's one of our bigger playgrounds, newer ones that we have in the city. What's nice is the location at Roseland Park is it's up on top of the old tennis courts. So that makes it real easy accessible, handicap accessible, and then even to be able to drive up in through here. So we get the resource center over here quite a bit, and a lot of disabled, not just children, but adults as well, because of some of the equipment that we have in there. So last year, the DPW in this area were the pickleball courts, and the parking lot is now put in a water detention system. Rather than just going ahead and blacktopping that right back over, we looked at this as maybe a possible opportunity to readdress our playground that we have here. So this is all built on top of the old tennis courts, so everything now is just blacktop. We have very few trees, 3 existing trees in there right now, and a few flowers down in this area. The biggest complaint I get about this park is we can go there for about 15 minutes, but it gets really, really hot. You're on top of that blacktop the whole time. The other issue we look at is because it's such an older setup of blacktop, we're looking at some major repairs needing to be done in there anyways. We're starting to get some cracking, getting some more settling going on, and that's been an issue even before we built the playground there. We just knew it would be a nice stable surface to build the playground on. So we'd have to address those issues anyways, basically a complete resurface of it. Again, we figured this would be a prime opportunity to open the door and make this maybe a complete playground in one of our parks. There is no shade structure or pavilion down at Roseland Park, where most of our parks we at least have one. Bergman Park, Allen, Jackson Taylor, we have pavilions at so people can get away and that. We're limited on what we can plant down in trees. In this area here, we have a nice big existing fence, but then we've got a baseball field that drops down below that. So we'd like to go in, completely remove all existing blacktop and then pour a new pad, or pour a new path that goes around completely handicap accessible all throughout, add a lot more green space in there, along with the shade structure. And then the front parking lot area, we create 2 new pickleball courts, a small parking area with handicap parking right up to the fence as well. We'd like to leave the blacktop strip going along the fence. That's what we use in the wintertime as one of our storage places for some of our outdoor equipment. If you go there now, you'll see some trailers loaded up with some amenities from other parks that we're getting ready to put out here in the next month or so. We have a nice new updated bathroom facility that was done 4 years ago. And if you drive by this park on a Saturday morning during baseball season, you're probably gonna have to park on Fluvanna Avenue because usually there's that many people in there. It's a nice place where the whole family can go, kids can be on the field playing, and then you can still see what's going on with the kids up on the playground up on top. To complete this project, we're looking at about $120,000 to be able to get this done. That's resurfacing pickleball courts, painting all the amenities that go with the pickleball courts. The blacktop itself, as you can see, where in the past we've gone through and tried to do a bunch of crack fills, and these are recent pictures. As you can see, there's no leaves on the trees. These were just taken not too long ago. And you can see some of the cracks that we have existing now. So we're gonna have to address it one way or another. We just thought this would be a better option to go after. we've used different plant material, in through there, again, to help out our wildlife, our birds, our squirrels, insects, all that kind of stuff. Chain link fence, most of that is all a chain link fence around, so it's very minimal what we'd have to add, and we do that around the pickleball courts, that way it can be contained into that area and not be spread out into the parking lot. And that's been a hard thing, as everybody knows, over the last couple of years, is trying to get a new fence put in anyway. So now we're looking at a little bit of that rather than having to put a fence in throughout the whole entire park. Any questions?
Pickleball is the fastest growing sport in the country, as we found out in a request that we often get in the mayor's office. Pickleball courts, yeah, as well as disc golf.
Disc golf and pickleball courts, so we're halfway there and inching closer every day. So,
You say that Boswell Park has no pavilions for shade with all this improvement. What about putting one or two in? Is there something going on?
we'd be looking at putting a shade structure right here with a concrete pad, so that way picnic tables, everything else.
Well, I
So,
thought that I would check.
yeah, so it included with this would be some of the amenities too, right? We'd add a few more garbage cans, now we're encouraging more people to come. In the green space areas, we can put benches, we can put picnic tables. If we have events, we can use our pop-up tents, things like that down in there. And then the shade structure, probably something similar to what they have over in the Winter Garden Plaza, right? All of our parks, we have the traditional pavilions, which is great, they're fantastic. But I'd like to see, especially with this newer design playground we have in there, maybe a shade structure like that. The one they've had in the Winter Garden the last 3-4 years seems to be holding up real nice and working well. I think we should be trying them in our parks too.
Would you be removing the existing ball field then?
Nope.
Oh, that's still in.
No, ball fields stays right where it's at, it's all set. We actually, thanks to city council and ARPA funds, we're able to redo the smaller ball field last fall. Excited to get the kids back out there playing. We had good enough weather in the fall where we actually had grass growing, and hopefully this spring will be right off and jump. Actually, I can tell you they're already out there playing baseball on that one. So, and we'll be looking to do, possibly the big one as well. We're gonna have some talks with Babe Ruth on what route we wanna go, with that ball field. So there's other things that we're also upgrading in the park right now as we speak as well. We'd end up doing, a lot of this in-house. Some of the removal of the blacktop, be able to make a path big enough to go around, with our paver and get that done. So we're looking to save costs like we do on every project we do, but still make it a top quality project, which the guys do. Any more questions on Roseland? So next we've got Willard Street. So Willard Street has an existing playground. I think you got a picture of the existing playground, don't you? It's probably been around since before I was born, right? Every year we have our insurance guy come around. And one, they're grateful we didn't put anything new in, because if we put anything new in, automatically we gotta take out all those old structures. Over the last 7 years, we've already removed 2, but as you can see, it's like what we all grew up with. It's nothing but solid metal pipes everywhere. One of them great little slides, I'm glad it's not a big long slide, because you'd get sunburned going down that thing every summer, right? So we run into some difficulties with this park. This has always been the one that's been talked about for a long time. As you see in the picture on the far left, there's a nice big chunk of concrete right there. There's a foundation from the old schoolhouse, all throughout that upper part. Then it drops off quite severe, heading down the hill, as you see, even at the top of the tower, it goes all the way down. And it continues, except for the nice flat area we have here, which the kids love to use, that wide open area for football, baseball, things like that. So we figured it's about time to redo Willard Street top lot. Right, big difference right there. And we go out and paint ours that color, but they're not gonna look that nice. We'd go ahead and this would come right off of the street. So right in this area would be the existing fence that goes around the park now. and then we'd still have our safety zone to get down in, put in a 4-bay swing set with an additional child swing on the end, a nice climbing wall with a few jumping apparatuses, and then the slide to go down. So nothing real crazy, but I think a huge improvement to that park and to that neighborhood. To go along with that, we've looked at using some of that wide open area that we had just seen on there and adding volleyball courts into there. It's probably been going on for at least the last 8 years where I've had somebody asking, why can't we have volleyball courts in the city of Jamestown? My daughter played volleyball, and I missed that window where she was able to grow up doing that. I don't want to do that for the next generation. It's really a pretty simple thing. We dig a hole, fill it with sand, put a post in the net. I think at a cheap cost, similar to like our disc golf, we're able to provide an activity for the kids to get out, to exercise, as Mr. Nelson was saying, that don't do the traditional ball and stick games. It gives them another avenue to be out, be involved, be active in the playground, at a small cost to us, at no cost really to the community to go use that. Also in talks with county soil and water, and looking at on that lower end, it's such a severe drop off, we'd never be able to build anything on that without a huge change in grade. Incorporating a possible fruit orchard, have different flowering and fruiting trees in through there to start, to go along with the public market, and see what we can get going on that end as well. And the cost to Willard with all of that, including some garbage cans, some benches, wood chips, border for the playground, we're looking at about a $72,000 to $74,000 hit right there. So again, really for a low cost to the city, I think it provides a huge payback to not just the city in the neighborhood and the state.
This park has consistently been rated in various reports as the most underutilized park, and one that has a large amount of children in that area as well. So we often get calls and complaints of this specific park, so we're excited to be able to offer some improvements to it, some much needed improvements. Those of you that grew up or live near this park, you're hoping never have to slide down that slide again.
Yeah, it's also one of the parks that was brought up in the community meetings with the opera to establish the use of the opera money. So it's good to see that there's something being done there.
There's a fence that goes around the whole perimeter of the park, which is nice, so it separates it from the residences, from Willard Street, and at the top of the park as well. So it's a place where you can go, have a picnic, and the kids can kind of run free, and you can rest assured there's really not going to be anything going wrong. So, any questions on Willard? I'd like to bring in Matt Spinago, our park supervisor, and Matt will explain the next two projects we're looking at.
So our basketball courts are one of the mainly used amenities in our park system. As you can see, over time, most of them have started cracking. In Allen Park, we don't even have any lines painted on here. And then at Jackson, Taylor, and Bergman, you can kind of see them faded. With them being able to be crack sealed and slurry sealed and then repainted over, I think that would be a great improvement to each of these basketball courts in our park system. A few weeks ago, we received a letter from a student at Jamestown High School regarding Jackson Taylor. This basketball court is probably the widely used basketball court in the park system. To be able to upgrade this for those kids would be a huge improvement. With the crack seal, slurry seal, and the painting, all three of them, small cost of $15,000. We'll have a little bit left over to be able to replace some backboards and some nets as well. Anyone have any questions on the basketball courts?
Yeah, we can do those in-house, or are we gonna?
We'll have to bid them out.
Bid it out?
Yep.
Now, is that just a quick fix, or would you call it a complete resurface?
I would call it a complete resurface. The crack and slurry seal should last 10 to 15 years.
This is one of the things where we talked about maintenance costs before, that we don't build in a maintenance cost in our projects. Now it's 10 years later since we built this one, Jeff, since putting this basketball court, and this is the condition they're in, just because we don't have that kind of maintenance budget. So we get to this condition. Last summer, we had the Jackals basketball team come down, run clinics at Jackson Taylor Park. Years prior to that, they were at Jackson Taylor and at Bergman and at Allen. Hoping to have that go on again this summer, and looking at possibly creating a youth basketball league with all different ages of that going on this year too.
Hey Dan, is all this surface impervious?
No, it's just straight blacktop, concrete.
You have no
Yeah.
percolation available to have that problem resolved?
We have drainage that was put in. Gravel base was put in 10 years ago when we did it. We're not seeing any major settling or anything going on here. It's just over time, right? You don't take care of your driveway even, and that's what's gonna happen. We have salt, we have winter, we have water that gets underneath, we have snow, and then you have all the hot summer, hopefully. So I think it's just.
But could you put pervious surface again?
I think without reinventing the wheel, this is something that we can get done, and then be able to look at a maintenance cost, maybe getting it sealed every year, at least every two, to create a longevity out of these things, rather than going in and doing a whole complete tear down and redo. We were looking at that at one we did over on Johnson Street, and that cost went a little bit higher. And like everything else, that price continues to creep up as well.
Another small project of ours is the downtown flower pots. As you see downtown on each corner, the flower pots that our assistant horticulturist, Jake Berg, he does a fantastic job on all the flowers downtown and in the park system. With buying these self-watering pots, they're the same ones we have on each corner. We would like to replace the old cement ones on North Main Street they're big, they're cracking, and they don't look very eye appealing. With being able to replace them with these self-watering plots, it'll save him time and labor to be able to focus on other flower beds in the city. We want to purchase 8 of these and then 10 of the rectangles. Do you have a picture of that? The urban rectangles you can find, they're sitting in front of the Regula. They're the big rectangular ones that usually sit in front of the reg. And then we're also looking to put some on Tracy Plaza as well to get rid of some of the cement ones. The cost of this total project would be $14,000. The 18 flower pots will cost 10 grand. And then the planting material that is used inside the pots will be 14,000, or 4,000, excuse me. Anyone have any questions on that?
Are they colored, or are they gonna be stone, or what's?
Yeah, it's almost like a millstone color. And the ones that we purchased will be the same ones that we have downtown already.
We have some already out there.
Yeah.
We started using these 6 years ago with grant money through the Gebby Foundation. They've worked out fantastic. It talks about saving labor in the busy summer months. Jake has not had a summer help kid with him to help water since COVID. So he's having to go around and water all the flowers in the city by himself for the most part, hoping that changes this year. We get more kids come to work for us. But we can get 3 to 5 days of watering out of filling this up at one time with a hose. There's a cap on the top. We fill it up and go. The other nice thing is in the fall, we take these, we empty them out, we bring them back into our shop. So they're not out there where we have to plow snow on the sidewalks on 3rd Street, Main Street, everything else. Those other planters have been around since the 70s. So they've been getting hit with plows, cars, everything else in the wintertime. They're really looking pretty ragged. We went around and picked out the best 6 or 8 we had left when we incorporated these newer ones, and took them out of circulation. It keeps that sidewalk and the roadway in the corners, parking spaces also clear in the wintertime as well, by us being able to take these inside.
Any other questions? Thank you, guys.
I just want to digress for a minute. It was brought up about the splash pads and possible disease or something from the water. The mayor said that, you know, he's not an epidemiologist or a biologist, and neither am I. But I would say that there's a better chance of catching something in Chautauqua Lake than from our tap water here in the city.
All right, we're good. Presentation, long and thorough. And lots to look at, think about. Moving forward, we'll move on to our committee reports. Finance, Kim, we'll run through.
Are we skipping the last one?
No, Brent's gonna do that under public safety.
Sure. So resolution number 1 relates to the bird rides program, and as you heard, the Corporation Council still has some issues or questions, whatever, to review, however you want to say that, so we have decided to hold that for right now. Resolution number 2, resolved that Sergeant Kyle Mann and Sergeant Matthew Bentley be and he hereby are authorized to attend the Advanced Crisis Negotiation Course to be held April 4th through April 6th, 2023 in Oriskany, New York. New York State Homeland Security and Emergency Services is providing this course and lodging at no cost to the city, but gas and meal expenses will be paid by the Jamestown Police Department pursuant to Section 77B of the General Municipal Law. That was passed. Resolution number 3, we had a brief discussion with Corporation Counsel again, and he has recommended that we table that and hold that for further review.
I will point out the school district has passed this at this point. I understand there are other, that there are other concerns. I just wanted to let that was a question that came up last time. I just wanted to let the council know.
Okay, resolution number 4, designating $15,000 and no cents in American Rescue Plan Act Healthy Community and Neighborhood Funds for the purpose of funding the basketball court resurfacing program in Jamestown City Parks. That was approved through finance. Resolution number 5, the mayor is authorized to execute an agreement with R. Patty Concrete Excavating LLC of Jamestown for concrete work, street reconstruction 2023, West 11th Street, Lafayette Street, and West 10th Street, based on the bid opening of February 16th, for a total bid amount of $158,250 and no cents, subject to the approval of the Corporation Council as to form. That was approved. Resolution number 6, Jamestown City Council designates $14,000 and no cents to the American Rescue Plan Act Healthy Neighborhoods Funds for the purpose of purchasing downtown flower pots. That was approved. Resolution number 7, that the Jamestown City Council designates $120,000 and no cents in American Rescue Plan Act Healthy Neighborhood Funds for the purpose of Roseland Park improvements. That was approved. Resolution number 8, Jamestown City Council designates $500,000 and no cents in American Rescue Plan Act Healthy Neighborhood Funds for the purpose of funding the Jackson, Taylor, and Allen Park splash pad projects. Again, I think wasn't that it wasn't approved, it was more that we wanted to hear the presentation and have a little bit of time to absorb what was presented. So I would like to keep that on the agenda for now. And resolution number 9, the Jamestown City Council designates $72,000 and no cents in American Rescue Plan for the purpose of Willard Street Park improvements. Dan, you answered a question a couple constituents had, why volleyball over basketball? So you answered that question in that presentation. That was one question that was brought up in finance, so that will be approved. That is it out of finance. We had nothing for executive session, nothing else, no new business, just resolutions.
Thank you.
The only other thing I think you were gonna touch on is the updated ARPA release. Did Zach bring copies for everybody, or was he gonna distribute that, or?
Yeah, I thought he did, but
Okay.
I could just.
They all got it on email too.
Yeah, do you have the ARPA?
Yeah, it's working out now.
Okay.
I can give you the totals. To date, we have spent 25,306,444 and 32 cents.
That's allocated.
Or allocated, I mean, expended and planned, whatever you wanna call it. Right in front of us today, we had $721,000 in park stuff. Again, we only approved a couple things, but, so that is left. And that is all we have in front of us at this point, of the 28,079,145.
Marie had to leave.
Yes, she had an
So-
emergency.
I will have her do a committee report at the next work session, unless somebody else has anything from housing specifically. Is there anything, nothing that needs to be brought up? Okay. Then we'll move on to public safety, Brent.
Okay, we had, the resolutions that went to finance. First was, for the advanced crisis negotiation course, Work Sergeants Kyle Mann and Abby Bentley, that was approved. We also had the bus patrol resolution, for the installation management of bus stop camera programs. And we were informed that the school board had passed that, so we did approve that, but, wait to see what comes from, further questions from them. And we did have one special event application, Turning the River Green, to be held on Saturday, March 18th, from 9 a.m. to noon. It says on 3rd Street, but we believe this is on South Main Street, at the bridge there, by JAMA. And that was approved. And we did get a report from the Jamestown Community Cat Program for last year, where we budgeted 240 cats. They actually altered 239. 151 had the surgeries done at Operation Pets in Buffalo, and 88 were done at the Chautauqua County Humane Society. That did result in some savings there, because they didn't have to do the transportation and everything, so they saved about approximately $1,481 on that. We did give them a grant of $5,000. They did get a grant from the CRCF of $8,000. They raised $3,000 in funds and donations. So we met what they needed to have. And the city has also allocated another $5,000 for this year. So we're very happy that 239 cats were spayed or neutered to prevent unwanted kittens. And I did bring up that I actually had a kitten come into my garage just before Christmas. The kitten was probably less than 3 months old. We had a cold snap right before Christmas, everybody remembers. We brought the cat into the house, pretty feral at that point. But last week we did have the cat spayed, and she is acting much better now. So I think we're introducing her to our other cats, but there are stray cats out there, and hopefully this program will help eliminate those numbers or lower those numbers. That's all we have from public safety.
Thanks for the report.
I just asked something for public safety. Just prior to the meeting, I had a citizen call me, Val Haglund. Her son owns Haggie's 4 Below. She called me with some concerns about the parking meters, specifically with the apps. She talked about having lunch at her son's restaurant the other day with some girlfriends of hers, and she was having some issues using the app. She said one of the people she was having lunch with still had a flip phone. She wasn't familiar with the app. She was concerned about the handicap space that was down there, and you had to use an app for that. She's had some back surgeries, and it was causing her to have to walk farther because she was looking for meters where she could use a coin. Her exact words to me was that, she's not against advancements. She understands that we need to move forward in technology and not be stuck in the past. But just wanted to make me aware that there are people that are struggling, in the senior community with using the apps downtown. And she feels that could potentially drive people away, not want to come down, seniors, and then in her son's case, wouldn't want to be frequenting restaurants because of that. I told her that I would bring that forward. She said she did call the mayor's office and speak to someone the other day, but she also wanted it to be known in front of the council, so.
I'm happy to respond to that and try not to unload my anger at our current meter provider. Not our employees, but the folks that we purchase the meters from, in particular under this state grant and contract that we bid out for. So we are, and Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but we are awaiting updated meter components and batteries for a good chunk of our meters. They did not survive the winter, which was a huge issue. So you'll notice that some of the meters have actually been replaced just with the coin. We have kind of retrofitted them to just use the coins in the meantime. Some meters, just the way that they're shaped, cannot handle that, so that it does say for the app. But we're now going on almost 2 months of not getting these batteries in, and we're having a lot of issues with the company that we are required to purchase them from as part of our agreement. So we're working through that, and this is the nice way of me saying thank you for bringing it up, because we've had lots of discussions and lots of angry phone calls with the folks that service our meters. But we'll work on it. We'll give you an update, Jeff. I appreciate you bringing that up. I don't know, Jeff, over here, if you want to add anything.
I mean, there is no other place to buy these batteries. Sometimes we'll go somewhere else. Batteries are us, doesn't carry these particular meters, so kind of at their mercy. And I think it's been more than 2 months.
She just said that it would be nice to have the option of using the app or.
That is the way it was designed, but not currently working. And this was me being nice about it, so not so nice when it calls.
Are we locked in agreement with that company for those meters?
So these meters only accept one battery type, and it must be purchased from that company.
When are we able to get away from those if we can't get the batteries? Are we
When-
locked in using them forever, or?
When we would like to create new meters, put all new meters in. We're
stuck.
Yeah.
The problem is there's a solar charger on these batteries, and we get into these months, they work fine all summer long, and then they're not recharging. So kind of in a catch-22 here, we're trying to figure out what to do with them.
So we do have them on order. We'll certainly keep you guys updated. Thank you for bringing up that issue.
Okay, move on to Public Works. Randy?
Thank you, Mr. President. Most of our resolutions were covered in finance, and we've seen the presentations here, and they were basically for to the court resurfacing of the basketball courts, for the flat work and concrete work on Lafayette and 10th Street, which is funded through the CHIPS funding, and the flower pots, $14,000 for the flower pot, and Roseland park improvements with the pickleball courts and all, and the Jackson Taylor Park splash pads, and we've decided we want to see the presentation also, and reserve more discussion after the presentation. And Willard Park improvements. They were all covered in finance, and as you've seen the presentation. The other two items were for 3 vehicles for the Parks Department. I mean the DPW. And one of them they basically need approval to purchase these 3 trucks, because one of them, Jeff had told us they can get right away, is a small dump truck, and the one that's in service now is a 2010 3, and it wouldn't be worth keep putting money into it. And they can get that small dump truck for the price of $67,207.64, which with the state bid, that's a decent deal. They do have that truck. It's a 2023 Chevy Silverado 3500 crew cab with a dump body. And that's from Joe Basil out in Transit Road in Depew. That one they can get, and as Jeff reiterated, they do need at least a verbal on it because these trucks are in high demand. And they were waiting for our meeting to be over with tonight to hear from Jeff tomorrow. The other 2 trucks that they would have to order, they are basically 2024 Chevy Silverados, 3500 crew cab, 4-wheel drive, and again from Joe Basil, the cost of the 2 trucks is $122,114, and they would replace a 10-year-old truck and a 12-year-old that are starting to rust and have electrical issues. So they were in the budget. Jeff needs to have the approval to purchase them, and we agreed to that.
So these are coming out of the general
Yes,
budget?
that's why the mayor hadn't seen it yet, so he was
No.
kind of like.
I wanna apologize.
We didn't have a copy.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't see it in finance either.
Right, these weren't submitted through, the end of last week, working with these guys off the OGS, they told us that, as crazy as it sounds, they need to know in early March to order these things, to even get them on their docket. They have a limit amount that they can order. So it kind of was a little bit of a crisis. Trucks are very difficult to get right now. Long lead times on
So what are these other 2 crew trucks for?
DPW crews. It's the crews, the trucks that they use every day to take the crews out to different jobs.
Right, it's got compartments on the side, you said? Yes, where they put their tools, their leaf blowers. Yeah.
Looks like they're replacing the other 2 trucks that are there, so
So
they probably
they
would
sell
sell it, and there would be a reimbursement for whatever they sell it for.
So this was budgeted.
This was in the budget.
Okay. So this is not anything from ARPA or
No.
extra.
And,
I thank Randy for getting Dan all jacked up.
Oh, yeah.
and we are, like the mayor just said, taking whatever we can for these old truck, the 2 old
We'll
trucks.
put those up for auction.
Same with the
And
15.
they'll probably get a decent money back on it.
All 3 of them were put up for auction? Or is
At least the
one
2 of
not?
them. At least the 2 of them.
Okay.
Jeff, are you still using an auction service?
Internet, non-internet, there's a new one out.
No, we use that auction service. We used to go out to Gary, put them in that auction. You got limited exposure on that. This is all. Yeah.
I think we're using liquidation, right?
I'm sorry?
We're using a liquidation one? I don't remember what one. Yeah.
What Pat was using.
We started using a larger organization for liquidations. Yeah.
And that is it with Public Works.
All right. Completes our committee reports. Is there anything else that the council has before we go to the mayor? If not,
Okay,
floor
I've
is
got about
yours.
3 hours worth for you guys go, so. No, I actually don't have any items for you all. I do have 2 personnel items in executive session with no action to be taken, but you've heard a lot from me today, and any further questions that you guys have on some of the things we presented on, please let us know, so that we can try to improve some of those projects. Also, don't forget Turning the River Green, which we're still one of, I think, around 3 communities in the United States that still does that. So.
So I'll be in Pittsburgh.
Oh, no, you won't be there?
That is correct. So 2 items for executive session, both personnel items, no action taken.
Do I have a motion to go into executive session? So moved by Councilman Sheldon. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Bill?